You're welcome to Business Daily on Trust TV. I'm your host, Chamun Dabeng. Let's talk numbers. We're starting off with the market as of 6 a.m. this morning. You're welcome back. Once again, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Well, according to the National Commission for Mass Literacy, Adult and Non-Formal Education, NMEC, Nigeria has a staggering 38% non-literate adult population and an estimated 6.9 million children out of school. Now, it's no secret that the Nigerian educational system has been standing on shaky ground. Now, joining me to talk about the role of education in economic development is education consultant and public affairs analyst, Mr. Agaba Wilson. Agaba, you're welcome to the show. And I also have here with me communications expert and behavioral scientist, Faiz Mohammed Ali. You're also welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, educational sector, we can't deny how important it is. It's very, very important. Now, but how does it directly relate to the economic development of a nation?
All right. To start off with, the essence of education, like I always say, is to empower the individual to become self-reliant and to also contribute positively to the society in which he or she lives. If you take it from that perspective, it tells us the essence of education. That for economy to thrive, there has to be productivity. For there to be productivity, there has to be skills. And education primes people with these skills to become productive. So vis-a-vis, education provides quality labor for a society to thrive. Now, a very simple way to look at it is, for instance, if a company that deals solely in information and communication technology wants to cite a company or a branch here in Nigeria, they have to look at one of two things, or two from the start. Number one, what will it cost them to bring people from their mother country to Nigeria to come and handle the company? Number two, can they find people with that kind of skills in Nigeria who would work for them, because that's going to be cheaper and that's going to make it easier for them to talk with the government of the country to give them access. Because if we tell you we are bringing something, it's going to employ your people and then we're going to pay you tax, it's easier to sell than saying, I want to bring my company and I'm bringing everybody from my country. So you see, education plays a very huge role in the economy of any country, because it helps to provide quality and appropriate as well as adequate labor for any kind of economic activity.
All right, Faiz.
I think going off what was just said, I think it's true that there are certain elements of, especially a modern society, that require us to have very specialized forms of education, very specialized forms of knowledge in order to grow a modern economy. You look at a country such as the Netherlands, for example. As early as the 19th century, it was a peasant country because the vast majority of people were subsistence farmers.
Yeah.
Netherlands today, I think only 2.5% of its national GDP is focused on agriculture. But that 2% is worth some $60 billion per year. The agricultural produce that comes out of the country every single year, whether that's dairy products, whether that's crops, whether that's subsistence, whether that's livestock farming, altogether totals at about $60 billion. To put in perspective, that is the Nigerian national budget for 3 years at once, at 3% of their national GDP. That is only possible because they were able to focus on mechanized agriculture. So they're able to produce at a very fast rate, at a very large rate, with only 18% of arable land. A state like Zamfara has 86% arable land, yes? And Netherlands as a nation, the landmass of the Netherlands would fit very neatly into Zamfara. So when you think about it, the development of a nation has to do very squarely with just how educated the populace are. Netherlands is one of the most educated countries in the world, not just in terms of, specialized scientific modes of whether that's agriculture, education, or entrepreneurship, but they're also very well read. The average Dutch citizen can speak anywhere between 4 and 5 languages normally, right? Now, we think about education and literacy not just in terms of the scientific benefits, but we must also think about it in terms of how it helps us develop as a society. One of the greatest problems we have in Nigeria right now is that our citizens are not very well equipped with their rights. Not just very well equipped, but they're not very well informed of what their rights are. But you cannot expect that to be the case when the vast majority of them are uneducated. So the education doesn't just play a part in ensuring that these democratic norms that we're currently going under are followed, but people aren't educated enough to understand what those democratic norms should be. I was at the National Assembly yesterday, and I was really interested in how you had to queue for a tag. No, you had to queue for a number before you could queue for a tag, before you could be allowed to enter the building. And it interested me because normally in modern democracies today, if you were going to enter any of these legislative halls, what would happen is that you go there, you probably made an appointment online before you were coming, speaking to specifically which legislator you wanted to see. You go there, there's already a tag, there's a number that's been assigned to you, they give it to you, you go to the office. You go to the office. What that really does, besides the simplicity of the system itself, is that it also tells you that the citizen has easy access to the legislator. But if you go to the average Nigerian today, getting to see a legislator is a very difficult task. And that's because we haven't inculcated one simple fact about democracy, in that the legislators and our elected officials are there to serve the people. Our understanding of it, culturally, traditionally, historically, our understanding of leadership has always been that our leaders are above us. The way we think of our kings, we think of our boas, we think of our emirs.
Rather than them being in positions where they're supposed to serve the public.
We are subservient to them. So getting to see them is an honor, so to speak. In a democracy, it's the other way around. But if you live in a culture that is, different to what democracy, how democracy functions, then you have to educate people towards these norms before you expect these changes. And in that way, just having the ability to come across new forms of knowledge, for our school systems to be able to inculcate these forms of, these forms of openness, the forms of versatility that comes with being a democratic society, that falls squarely on education. It's
human development on a 360 level, on different aspects.
Exactly.
Yes. So I want to take a look at the budget for education, actually. Yeah, I believe that it's something that's still important to actually talk about, because President Buhari did say that the budget towards education was going to increase by 50% in the next 2 years. And so far, that has not been the case. As a matter of fact, there was a bit of a drop, really. So now looking at even that 50% that was, initially supposed to increase in the next 2 years, is that really enough to actually revive the educational sector? Because there's a lot that needs to go into it. We have buildings that are dilapidated. We have unqualified teachers teaching students in the classrooms. I mean, so was it ever going to be enough?
You see, just like my colleague here said, If we begin to take education to every nooks and crannies of our life, we will always strive to make things better and easier, faster, cheaper, more effective. We will be able to think in that direction. So sometimes it's not the amount of money put there. It's the amount of creativity you put into it. Take, for instance, you don't have any business in these days that almost 90% of our students have a smartphone. You don't have any business taking some courses in an auditorium. When this course can be preloaded, you could even have a live session with the student, and it's still going to be quality. And then you can have some selected courses, especially the ones that involve practicals and all of that, and then that can be done in the school. So I think that we should invest in the right infrastructure. We should look at the human development, the right quality of people. We have a system today that pushes the right quality of teachers out of the system and allow only the poor ones to remain. And even the good ones who decide to remain are forced to stay at the background, and they can't even bring forth any of their innovations. So we have to reject the system, and it takes leadership from the top. That has to come from the top. It has to come from a president, it has to come from a governor, it has to come from the head of the legislatures who believe that we need to change this. And I've continued to lament about this, that we have kept the kind of curriculum that the white man gave us to just help us learn enough to be able to go on errands for them. And we want to use that to compete in a jet age generation, in an information age generation. We have now what they call the knowledge economy. And we are here talking about basic literacy. You see, so how do we compete with a nation who is already making money, growing their economy based on knowledge? So we need to sit down, take that giant step. And we have the advantage because we don't have to go through the sequence that other nations pass through anymore. We can bypass that and come to what is in vogue now and start growing from there. To do that, we need to really sit down and identify the challenges we have in our countries, the challenges around the world, and determine what do we want to do for ourselves and what do we want to take from Nigeria to the world, and design an education system that delivers that. There's no use learning about things that are not your current problems. Let's start solving our problem. We have problem of electricity. We have problem of housing. We have problem of potable water. We have problem of food storage. We have problem of waste management. We have several of these problems that you see every day as you go out there. We have problem of transportation. Let's begin to create a curriculum that addresses this. So we are using education. Education and the society should be integrated. The problem is discovered using governance, and then education proffers a solution to it, and governance brings back the solution into the society, and that iteration is what keeps the society grow. But over here, they are divided. Like there's a gulf between them. Nothing links education with governance. Nothing links governance with education. And then a lot of things, we need to really sit down, rejig, a total overhaul, if I may say.
I agree. Mr. Wilson, you talked about us not having to go through the normal sequence that other countries had to go through in order for them to get to where they are now. But Faiz, do you agree with that when he actually says that we can actually just move from where we are to, directly just...
So I both agree and disagree with the assessment in some ways. I think, just like he rightly said, one of the issues with the way that budgets are constituted, both from the executive arm and in the National Assembly, is that primarily what needs to happen is there needs to be a needs assessment carried out. The fact of the matter is that different regions of this country have different needs when it comes to education. You look at the Eastern region had free education instituted as early as 1857, if I'm not mistaken, but it was abandoned because of cost issues. We know Awolowo, I think it was in 1955, made education free for the Western region. I think it was only until 1976, during the Obasanjo administration, the military wing of Obasanjo's administration, that it became a national priority to make education, free for all.
Yeah.
Again, budget constraints and differences between the successive administrations didn't make that necessarily a reality. So there are very different needs that each region has when it comes to education. Now the problem is when most budgets are constructed in this country, there isn't a needs assessment carried out. So therefore there's this very archaic way of looking at education, just like my colleague said, from the past, from the lens of the past. You're not really thinking about what the current problems are and what the current solutions for those very particular problems need to be. And so that puts us in a situation whereby we don't have the foundation that is necessary to reach the goal. Yes, the goals that we want to goals that we want to achieve as the country. And then even if we were to get to that particular point, because the foundation isn't very strong, you're not going to get particularly far down the road. So you look at something like, we have a very robust tech ecosystem in Nigeria, for example. It's one of the best funded. It's one of the most versatile across the continent. Nigerian technology entrepreneurs are recognized all over the world. But what you see when it comes to the success of a lot of these entrepreneurs and a lot of these companies is that they're focused mainly in one part of the country. In fact, one city, one state, Lagos. Really. And that's because Lagos has the highest literacy rate. That's because it has the highest graduation rate, has the highest school retention rate. And that plays directly into why all these success stories come from one particular area of the country. So I think the fact of the matter is, unless we can focus our energies on creating the foundation, and I stress on the foundation because at the end of the day, none of the sectors that we're thinking about, whether that's agriculture, whether that's technology, whether that's medicine, without foundations, we're not going to get very far using them. One of the critiques I've always had of the agriculture plan that this administration carries out, we've always kept talking about how agriculture is the lifeblood of a nation.
Yeah.
People need to go back to agriculture to move the country forward. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. But then the vast majority of the country is focused on subsistence agriculture. We haven't commercialized the agricultural sector to the extent that it can become the lifeblood of a nation. Yes, it can generate revenue, but can it pay for the livelihoods of the
people?
Yes, the people, to the point that where it is the amount of money that is generated is being used to improve their livelihoods. We haven't reached that point yet.
All right, so we do have to take a short break, and when we get back, we'll round up the discussion. You're welcome back to Business Daily. My name is Chamunda Beng, and I'm here with Agaba Wilson Agaba and Faiz Mohammed Ali, and we're currently talking about education's role in economic development. All right, so let's talk about the policies that we have that have actually been created towards the educational sector. Now, what are some of the policies that have actually worked against the educational sector and for? Let's start off with you. You're the education consultant here.
You see, I have taken a look at most of our educational policies, and what we try to do, sometimes we try to maybe rearrange certain blocks within the same room. You know, like under Obasanjo, I would say, okay, we should now have the 6334, and then after sometimes I think what we have now is the 934 or something like that, and all of this. These are not the real things that will change our education fortune. Most of our policies has been superficial at best. I came across some of the policies that were actually deep, but I believe we have another problem, which is implementation. And one of the reasons this happened, I figured eventually, is that when they want to put these policies together, there are people close to power who will bring friends who actually know these things. So they put together a very fine policy, and then they are pushed away. And then the people who are close to power, who themselves want to implement these policies, haven't the capacities to implement it, and then it is wasted. So most of our policies at best have been superficial. Let's adjust the structure. Let's adjust this. It has not spoken to the real essence of our education system. It has not spoken to what will the cost be to us? What will be the benefit to us? What is our goal? How are we achieving it? What best way can we do this? Who should be involved? And all of this. We have never had a policy that really attempts to change our education in this drastic manner in any recent time that I'm aware of. We have seen a lot of superficial policies that time will not allow us to start delving into right now, but they have never looked at our education from this perspective, to see education as a tool for our economic fortune. We have never had any policy that have done that. And I believe that the next administration that's coming in 2023 should look at it that way. Because until you fix it, because we are talking about a literacy level now, we need to come up with a creative way to put these people to school. And when we take them to school, they need to come back home with something quality. Not to make them go through the school and come back the way they were. Only that they now have a paper. Because education is not about the paper. It's about what exactly is about the behavioral change that has been achieved. So we must think about that, quality and quantity.
All right, so my last question for the day. Now, we talk about human development, and, you know, education is a big part of it. Now, I mean, it's very hard for me to actually look at education and then not, you know, look at the unemployment rate in Nigeria. Because we do have people who are educated. We do have people who have even left the country in order to gain education outside because they felt it was better. But coming back 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years down the line, there's still no job for them. You know, they're either underemployed or they're completely unemployed, you know, or, you know, just trying to work for themselves. So now, after investing and putting all of this time and energy into human development and bettering the educational sector, what do you now do with the young youths who are in their 20s, in their 30s, and all of that, and they have nowhere to basically place the things that they've learned? I mean, it's a country with very minimal opportunities.
Okay, I'll let Faiz go first on this.
So I'd like to kind of join that together with the policy question, because there are three things that I think we don't do ourselves a service when it comes to education. Three mistakes that we make from a policy perspective. The first one is that when it comes to education, our focus, both in the public sphere and in government circles, is usually on tertiary education. How well-funded our universities are, what the quality of education that is there, what sort of subject matter is being taught in the curriculum, which is a good issue to take forth. However, tertiary education is not the fulcrum through which we should be viewing national education. By the time a student has already passed through secondary education and enters into the university, if he has not found a solid foundation within secondary school, university isn't going to take him very far. He's not going to learn too much. I feel that secondary school should be the focus of our education plan. And I don't think any administration, probably since, again, the Obasanjo military administration in the 70s, has really thought about it in that manner. That's number one. Number two is when it comes to again, assessing the needs of each region and understanding that there are particular needs per region, and understanding that in order to solve some of the problems that we have, you see, Nigeria has already come very far down the road, such that our problems are very complex. So we're not going to have one overall solution for everything. We need to have a regional instead of national education plan. We can have a national education plan, of course, but there need to be regional considerations taken into it. Right now, it's almost done in a state-by-state manner, really. So when I speak of regional education, for instance, illiteracy is one of the things that is commonly discussed when it comes to the education sector in Nigeria. Now, there's a difference you see in what we have, particularly in the northern part of the country, between illiteracy and functional illiteracy. The vast majority of the people in the north are commonly referred to as illiterates, which is not really the case. Illiteracy is when you don't have the ability to read or write or understand basic arithmetic. That's not the case. What's happening in the north is the vast majority don't understand all these in the English language. Is it not possible to reorient educational structures to allow certain parts of the country to understand education in their particular
language? All right, unfortunately, we do have to round up the discussion because we do not have enough time. But I'd like to thank my guests in the studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson and Faiz, for being a part of the show. And to all our viewers, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms. Just look us up at TrustTV News. You definitely find us. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Welcome back again for more Business Daily. Once again, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Let's talk numbers.